Hello, my little mathematicians. Today, we're going to talk about unit rate. The unit rate is a rate in which the second quantity, or the one in the denominator typically, is 1. Another way that they typically ask this is they'll say, what's the average amount that this usually happens? Okay, average is another way of asking for the unit rate. You can find the unit rate by dividing the denominator into the numerator. Now, before we get started, it's always helpful to know, why are we learning this? So the unit rate is most helpful when determining a question like, what's the better buy? So for instance, let's say you have two friends, and hopefully you have more than just two friends, okay? But two of your friends come up to you and they're like, oh my gosh, you'll never guess, I just got the best buy. You have to go here. I only spent $6,000 and I got 10 TVs. Oh my gosh, they're having a crazy sale. You have to go there. And before you're like, wow, that is a great deal. Maybe I should. Before you can even have time to process that, your other friend is like, no. Don't go there. I just got back from a really great sale and I only spent $2,000 on two TVs. And you're like, okay, well, they spent less, so I should probably go there. Yeah. And then the other friend's like, but I bought way more TVs. And you're like, okay, but you spent way more. So where's the better place? What store has the better buy? This is when you would want to find the unit rate. Okay, so what we said is you would divide the denominator into the numerator. So whatever the denominator is, that's what I'm going to divide by. So 6,000 divided by 10 is $600. And 10 divided by 10 is 1. Okay. This one says the denominator is 2. So I'm going to divide both of them by 2. And 2,000 divided by 2 is 1,000. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the reason I do this is the unit rate is when the denominator is 1. In order to determine what the best buy is, you need to know what's the cost of just one TV. And whatever store is cheaper for just one TV, that's the better store that you want to go to. So this place charges $600 for one TV. This place charges $1,000 for one TV. So yeah, they spent less, but that's because they bought less. This place is the better buy. So I should go to the store that this friend recommends. And this is an instance of why you would need to know the unit rate. Okay. Now, typically in word problems, like they give you things out of order. Sometimes it's in the correct order. Sometimes it's not. So it's helpful to know what usually goes on top. So if I could give you that helpful hint, I would say money and distance usually goes on top. Okay, and time usually almost always goes on bottom. There's very few instances where this isn't true. But think about it. It's how much does it cost per one TV? Or how much does it cost per shirt? Or how much does it cost per pound? Usually money is always on top. And time is usually on the bottom and distance is usually on top. So when you're talking about driving, you talk about miles per hour, or if it's like running, maybe feet per second. Okay. So distance is usually on top. Time is usually on the bottom. Another thing is within a word problem, whatever goes after the word per or even each. So like per, each, every, that usually goes on the bottom as well. Okay. Let's go ahead and practice finding the unit rate. These ones are in the correct order because we're just starting. So the first thing goes on top. We're going to start off nicely. The one hint I'm going to give you is anytime you get a decimal, please round those to the nearest tenth. Unless it's a money problem, then obviously we'd round to the hundredths place, so it makes sense for cents. Okay, so this first example says 9 runs in 3 games. And if they asked you, like, please find the unit rate, okay, then you want to know how many runs does this player usually make per game. So I divide by whatever the denominator is. The denominator is 3, so I'm going to divide by 3. The reason I do that is because, remember, unit rate wants a denominator of 1. Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So now you have 1 game. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this player typically makes 3 runs per game. And that kind of makes sense that that's the average that he does per game when you're finding the unit rate, right? Okay. The next one says it's $207,000 per 1,800 square feet. So you want to know how much does it cost per square foot. So I'm going to divide by 1,800. Okay, let's go ahead and get our calculator out and divide 207,000 by 1,800. You divide that and you get 115 on top. And you get 1 on the bottom, right? Because 1,800 divided by 1,800 is 1. And that unit was square feet. So it's $115 per square foot. Why don't you guys try to finish the rest? Pause the video and then unpause it when you think you have it. Okay, now that you unpaused it and you're back with us, let's check to see if you got it right. $2,010 in 6 months. So what was the unit rate? How much did you earn per month? Well, let's divide them both by whatever that denominator is of 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So now I can figure out how much it is per 1 month if I do 2,010 divided by 6. Get your calculator out, and you got $335 per month is how much you average then if you earned this much in 6 months. Okay, the next one says there's 52 songs on 4 CDs. So what's the unit rate? How much is on each CD then? Well, divide by whatever the denominator is. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now I know how much is on 1 CD. If I do 52 divided by 4 is 13. So there's 13 songs per CD. The next one says 226 miles on 12 gallons of gas. So what's your average miles that you can go per gallon? Well, divide by 12. Okay, 12 divided by 12 is 1, so 1 gallon. When I divide this, I get this in my calculator, 18.8333, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Well, I said, please round to the nearest tenth if it's not talking about money. This isn't money. So the tenth is right here, one place after the decimal. I look at the number right behind it. If the number behind it is 5 or above, it's going to tell this number to go up. If this number behind it is 4 or below, it's going to tell this number to stay whatever it is. There's no such thing as round down. It's either stay or round up. Well, this is a 3, so that tells us 8 to stay in 8. So I'm going to round it to 18.8 miles per gallon. That's how much it averages. Okay. My last one in this section says, I typed 324 words in 6 minutes. So on average, how much do I type per minute? Well, 324 divided by 6 is 54. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. So I average about 54 words per minute. If you got those right, great job. Now let's try it with some word problems. It says, during exercise, Sonia's heart beat 675 times in 5 minutes. How many times does it beat per minute? Okay, so in this one, when we're talking about word problems, it really matters which one goes on top and which one goes on the bottom. But they gave me this little hint. It said per minute. So whatever comes after the word per or each, that's my indication of what they want on the bottom. So I want minutes on the bottom. They want it per 1 minute. So I eventually want minutes to become 1. Okay, and what came before that? How many times does it beat? Okay, so I can put the number of beats on top. Okay, now that I established what goes where, let's fill it in. 675 goes with how many times it beats in 5 minutes. And if I want to find how much it beats per 1 minute, let's make the denominator become 1 by dividing it by itself. 5 divided by 5 is 1, so you have 1 minute. 675 divided by 5 is 135. So it beats 135 times per minute. When it says just per minute, that's implying it's per 1 minute. Okay, the next one says the Lawsons want to drive the 288 miles to a campground in 6 hours. What should their average speed be? Remember, average is another way of asking unit rate in miles per hour. Okay, so it kind of told me I want miles on top and hours on the bottom because I want this to eventually become 1. Well, it says I go 288 miles in 6 hours. So let's get the unit rate by dividing whatever that denominator is to both the top and the bottom. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So now I have the per 1 hour. And 288 divided by 6 is 48 miles. So when I found the unit rate, I found if they do that, they went average speed of 48 miles per hour. Okay, great job. Let's try some more where they're not necessarily in the right order, and we have to determine what should go where. Okay, if I take a look at this top part, it says 12 hours for 69 bucks. Well, what makes most sense? Do you normally say, I work these hours for this per this much money? I can't even spit it out that way because it doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't make sense, right? Normally you say, I make this much money per hour. So you know that money goes on the top and hours goes on the bottom. Like it just makes more sense. Okay, so I'm going to put that you make this much money in 12 hours. So then to find the unit rate of how much you make per hour, divide them both by 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1. And 69 divided by 12, let's see in my calculator. And it's exactly 5.75. And since we're talking about money, I don't need to round it to the 10th. I want it in the hundredths place. Okay, my next one says 6 pounds for $12.96. Well, normally isn't like how much it costs per pound. That's what you'd want it to be. So let's put the money on top and the pounds on the bottom. So 6 pounds cost me $12.96. To find the unit rate, I'm going to divide them both by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. And 12.96 divided by 6 is exactly $2.16. So it's $2.16 a pound. Okay, 488 miles and 4 trips. You probably want to know how many miles did you go per trip. So let's go ahead and do that one. Okay, so 488 miles for 4 trips. To get the unit rate, divide by whatever the denominator is. 488 divided by 4 is 122 miles, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. So you went on average about 122 miles per 1 trip if you went that many miles in 4 trips. Okay, the next one, do you think it's meters per second or seconds per meter? Well, we said normally it's distance over time, right? Like miles per hour. Meters is another thing like miles. Seconds is another thing like hours. It's another measurement of time and distance. So let's go ahead and set that one up as 220 meters per 20 seconds. So I'm going to divide by that denominator of 20. And 20 divided by 20 is 1. And 220 divided by 20 is 11. So you went 11 meters per second, or in 1 second. Okay, miles per minute, we already established that distance goes on top usually, and time goes on the bottom. So we want to know how many miles did they go per minute. So let's go ahead and divide by 39. And 1.5 divided by 39 is 0.038 miles. And 39 divided by 39 is 1. Okay, and that makes sense because 1 minute, like there's no way you can run a full mile in 1 minute, right? So you're going to run a fractional amount of a mile in a minute. 24,000 kilometers in 1.5 hours, distance over time. So let's put 24,000 over 1.5 hours. If I want to get the unit rate, I'm going to divide by whatever is in that denominator, and it was 1.5. So 24,000 divided by 1.5, I get exactly 16,000 kilometers. And 1.5 divided by 1.5 is 1. So you went about 16,000 kilometers in 1 hour. Okay, now for these word problems, like there's definitely no guessing. They're being very specific of what they want the denominator to be. They are telling you right here by that word per. Okay, they want to know how many students per teacher there are. So I know I'm going to want students per teacher. So let's look at the rest of it. It says a class trip consists of 84 students. So that goes with the students, and 6 teachers. So 6 goes with the teachers down there. And then they want to know how many students per teacher. So per 1 teacher. Let's get the denominator to become 1. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Good. We got for 1 teacher. Do it on top. 84 divided by 6 is 14. So there's, oops, and I can spell. There's about 14 students per teacher. Okay, and last one for that little section right there says a bowler scores 3,152 points in 16 games. What is his average score, unit rate, in points per game? Okay, points per game. Well, 3,152 points in 16 games. If I find the unit rate, I'm going to divide by whatever's in the denominator. 16 divided by 16 is 1. So 1 game, 3,152 divided by 16 was 197 points. So they averaged about 197 points per game. Now I said that that was the last problem, and you're like, wait, there's one more. Well, because I want to expand upon this problem. Okay. So for this one, it says Steve drove his car 90 miles to visit his grandparents. It took him 2 hours to drive this distance. Express the ratio of miles he drove to the number of hours it took him as a rate in per unit form. It's a fancy way of saying find the unit rate again. Okay, so they want the number of miles he drove to the number of hours it took. So miles per hour. So he drove it 90 miles in 2 hours. If we find the unit rate, divide by 2. 90 divided by 2 is 45. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the per unit form is 45 miles per hour. Okay, now I want to kind of build upon that a little bit, and let's do a more complicated problem. Okay. Instead of just doing one ratio, if I do 2 ratios equal to each other, then I can do a proportion, right? We've kind of touched upon that before. Or instead, I could find the unit rate of one item and then use that information to help me find the next set of information. And you're like, well, great. How do I know which one to put on the bottom for this? Well, the hint lies in the fact that see how like after a comma or a period, these go together. If you spend $50 for 25 gallons of gas, so these go together, then it says how much would it cost for 45 gallons of gas? So how much, we don't know, for this many gallons of gas. What would be nice is if I found how much it costs for 1 gallon of gas, and then I could multiply the 1 gallon of gas times 45 gallons of gas. So I'm going to do this. Okay. Again, I said it would be nice if I figured out how much it was for 1 gallon of gas. So let's put gallons on the bottom and money on top. So they say it's $50 for 25 gallons of gas. Now, if I want to figure out how much it is for 1 gallon of gas, I find the unit rate. 50 divided by 25 is 2. So $2 per 25 divided by 25 is 1. So $2 for 1 gallon of gas. Now that I found how much it costs for 1 gallon of gas, okay, so 2 gallons or $2 for 1 gallon of gas, but I want to know how much does it cost for 45 gallons of gas. So all I would have to do is multiply by 45, right? And then do the same thing on top. So 2 times 45 is 90. It costs $90 for 45 gallons of gas. So if you find the unit rate first, how much it is for 1 gallon of gas, then you could multiply it times 45. And 2 times 45 is $90. So that's how we could use the unit rate. We could use it to help us solve a proportion, or most of the time, the reason I'd want to use a unit rate is if you're looking for a better buy, like what we did at the very, very beginning when we said, like, which one's the better buy, this TV versus this TV, and you knew which store to go to. Or there's also, if they ever ask you to find the average of something, that's another way of them asking you to find the unit rate. And now you know. Congratulations on mastering yet another difficult math standard.